It is Wednesday, the 28th of October, and you are listening to the Film School podcast, and it is Spooktober. We are going to discuss three main movies of the week this week, all horror films. If you don't know what Film School podcast is, it's a weekly podcast where we sit down and talk about the movies that we've been watching. We have none other than myself, King Frogby, the film guru himself, Josh, aka @JLuke. How you doing, Josh?
Good, thanks, mate. Good.
We have the final girl, Emily Pratt. How you doing, Emily?
I'm well, thank you, Adam.
You can follow Emily at EJP74 on Letterboxd. And last but not least, we have the rom-com expert, Chris Birchie. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good, thanks, mate.
You can follow Chris at Letterboxd, on Letterboxd at Birchie84. You can also follow us all on Instagram. We have a Instagram where we post updates on all the things that we're talking about, as well as we've just started doing some lists, films_cool podcast, and then also on Twitter, filmscoolpod. All right, so this is a bit of a different episode today where we're going to talk about, some spooky movies. The movies are I Know What You Did Last Summer, The Blair Witch Project, and A Nightmare on Elm Street. So, let's start talking about the first film. I Know What You Did Last Summer, directed by Jim Gillespie, screenplay by Kevin Williamson, and released on the 17th of October 1997. It had a budget of 17 million and a box office of 125.2 million, which is absolutely shocking to me. And it also has a 111-minute runtime. Do you want to tell us a bit more about the plot?
Yeah, so to keep it brief and not spoil too much, essentially, four friends accidentally hit and kill a man on a road at night. They obviously start to panic, as you would, because that would be pretty traumatic. And they end up making a really poor choice where they dump the body into the sea. Flashes forward, they're all trying to, move on with their lives. But one of the friends receives a note in the post saying, I know what you did last summer. So from then on, all of the friends kind of get their own reminder about, what happened last summer. And they kind of begin to realize that there's someone out there who knows what happened that night and that they are out for revenge.
Yep. And that's the plot of I Know What You Did Last Summer. This movie has the most 90s cast I have ever seen. You've got Sarah Michelle Gellar, you've got Jennifer Love Hewitt, you've got Freddie Prinze Jr., and you've got one of my most hated men in film history, Ryan Phillippe. And it just brings back nostalgia to my childhood. This was probably one of the first horror movies I ever watched because I remember hearing my sister talk about it when I was way too young. And just when you start to watch these sort of movies, I was like, oh yeah, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I've heard about it. And I had such a fun time with this. Like, it's dumb. Well, it's actually not that dumb, and they take it in a few surprising sort of directions, or maybe not surprising, but less formulaic directions. But some of the decisions here are so stupid. So stupid.
They're really bad, aren't they?
Yeah.
I was going to say the decision that happens in a lot of horror movies or even action movies where the first part where, they've hit someone and just call the cops. You just need to call the cops. But I suppose the movie wouldn't happen if they didn't do that.
Yeah.
As you said too, it is sort of unpredictable as well, parts of it, which at first I was like, oh, it's clearly this person, and then another thing comes up, I'm like, oh, it's clearly this person, and it, kind of goes full circle. You kind of just keep guessing, so I didn't mind that part.
So with the whole decision they make at the start, I completely agree that anyone would call the cops immediately. But Ryan Phillippe is just the biggest fucking dick that I'm just like, actually, maybe you would throw a body in a river just because you hit someone in your dad's car.
You know what,
Are you the Cruel Intentions guy?
Yeah,
that guy.
Yeah.
Why did they even include that Johnny Galecki guy? From Big Bang Theory?
Oh, yes, I was wondering that too.
I because he pulls the car up while they've got the body over the edge, and clearly like they've hit something, but he just kind of just drives on.
Yeah.
I can tell you why he was there.
And I was like, is it supposed to be like a misdirection, like for like who's telling them? But like it was so poorly done.
I think the thing too is that they then like just killed him off so early because like you thought that must be that guy for like a whole of like 20 minutes and it's like well actually he's dead now so it can't be him.
Yeah.
Didn't you notice they did that through the whole movie though?
Yeah,
Like they jump between who they're foreshadowing it to be from scene to scene. So it's Johnny Galecki at the start because he was the one who saw him there. That's the first place they go to. He gets killed immediately after. So then you're like, oh, okay, maybe it's Ryan Phillippe because he was there. We know he's there.
He's a dipshit.
He's the next one to get killed.
Yeah.
And they just keep killing off everyone until eventually we find out who it is, and it's a completely different character.
Yeah, someone you've never
we
met.
just did a spoiler there. It's not Johnny Galecki, whoever's listening.
Trust me, I don't think anyone listening will care about spoilers for this specific one.
Yeah. With that character too, like, did you notice that at first you kind of felt sort of sorry for him in the I think it was a party scene or wherever they were, because he likes one of the, I can't remember which of the girls, and the guys treat him really poorly. But then they straight away turn his character into a, no, you don't like him anymore. Like they just, like his character just changed.
He got like really aggressive and like just out of the blue. It was like all right.
Like let's say they did crash their car and he's rolled up on it. He's acting with the most passive aggressive attitude straight away instead of being like, "Oh shit, guys, are you all right? Did you just have a major accident?"
Yeah,
I hate Johnny Galecki. I think he's the biggest piece of shit. And he just you've got two of the biggest pieces of shit, in my opinion, personality-wise, in cinema in this one movie, and they both get killed first and second, and it's my favourite thing about this movie.
Then you've got two like great female leads as well, like Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Yeah,
Jennifer Love Hewitt was the best, I reckon.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, 100%. I was saying to Em when I watched it, I was like, you could rename this movie Three Dickheads Gaslight Jennifer Love Hewitt, and it's the same movie.
Absolutely. There's also like that bit with John Galecki where like at the very start you're introduced to his character and obviously like the boyfriend rocks up and just like flogs him off entirely, and then he kind of just lingers behind the entire conversation. He's like really close to Ryan's neck and just like, what's happening? What are we talking about, guys? And I'm just like this is the cue, bro. Leave.
I'm pretty sure, like, this is a random fact to throw in now, but I'm pretty sure Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar met on the set of this, maybe. And this is why they got married.
That's cute.
And I find it interesting that, so, as Adam said before, this is written by Kevin Williamson, and it was his follow-up to Scream. Clearly, it's not directed as well as Scream because you didn't have Wes Craven here. We had Jim Gillespie, who I have never heard of apart from this film, so not off to a great start. But I feel like it was lacking the self-aware humor of Scream.
Yeah.
And the fact that Scream 2 was released this same year, and I'm like, and he wrote that as well. So this is the only one of his films that is of a good quality that sort of plays it super genuine and super straight. Although some of the kills are a bit ridiculous and fun. Like, once it starts to get a bit violent, it's real over the top.
I think it's, as you said, it's definitely like a fun movie. It's not, I don't think you should watch it and take it seriously all that much.
No, this is for like genre fans who like really enjoy just sitting down and just watching something that's completely in their ballpark, and they can just have a laugh along.
Because even like the dialogue was just like laughable.
It was. And you've got these good actors delivering it too. So like they're delivering it with a certain level of respect that you're like, this just reminds me of TV in the 90s, but with a couple of swears here and there, and And as you were saying with the box office take, Adam, I can see why it made that much money, because back in the 90s, this was fun to go out and go to the cinemas, and if you get the right crowd at the cinema, because there's some movies that benefit from having a real quiet crowd. But there's some movies that benefit from having like a real raucous crowd who's laughing along and joking around with the movie. And when Em and I went to the Halloween marathon, it happened with the third one a lot because the third one is clearly the worst one and it takes it in a completely different direction. But the audience just loved the fact that it did it, and it's so stupid, and everyone got involved, and it makes the viewing experience better. And I feel like this is one of those ones that would fit perfectly in that marathon for that reason.
Yeah, as
Like,
someone who
without
like
a little
doesn't
stupid
love
vibe.
horror, like this is like actually a movie I would maybe recommend to like, I don't know, just like the everyday film goer who doesn't like this isn't a scary horror film. This is like just a stupid like
A slasher.
stupid fun. That's what I would say.
It's like your dumb rom-com version of a
Yeah.
sort of slasher movie.
Yeah,
Like
and
you can watch it if you like it, you can watch it. It'll just be easy viewing. You know, you're not going to be afterwards. You're not going to be like, oh, I wish I didn't spend my time watching it. It's definitely worth an easy watch.
Like, I'd prefer to watch something like this than a stupid comedy. Like, this is my equivalent of putting on a stupid comedy to just relax to, just because you can just switch off. You don't. And as we were saying, like, the man who wrote Scream could not follow a Scream with a super formulaic slasher, and he doesn't here. There's not the traditional group of teenagers. These guys have a little bit of a different sort of background. And they don't get killed off in necessarily the traditional order.
I feel like this movie was also like it was terrible at building tension. So like there is no part of it was I like, oh man, I'm scared. The only time I like jumped was in the very final scene when everything's foggy and the glass breaks, because I think it was just like the loud noise. And the mannequin in the
Yeah.
like those were the two times I was like, oh fuck. But every
I
other
feel like the one time that got me might have been when like the body or the man that they thought was dead was actually alive and like he came back to life. I think that might have slightly got me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, what about that really? Like, I found it really dumb, that scene with the car and the bodies in the back of in the boot.
And they just disappeared.
Yeah, and then like she goes into the house and they come out and nothing's there, and like it had like so much ice was there. There was like, wasn't there all these crabs in there? There's no smell, nothing. They're just like.
So was that a dream or was that?
I don't know. Was it?
Maybe
it was a dream. Maybe that's why. I don't.
No,
I thought it was real.
I'm asking the question because, like, if it was real, like, how did he get rid of all the crabs, the ice, and not have anything smell? And then also everything perfectly laid. She was gone for like 2 seconds.
Maybe
I
it was a
thought
dream.
it was real, but maybe yeah. Oh, I don't know, Josh. What do you think?
Let's be honest. It could be. It could not be. Either way, it was dumb.
Yeah. It was real dumb.
But I'm assuming, like, I can't even remember. Like, I watched this one the longest ago. I'm guessing it would have had to have been a dream. There's no way that they would have put in, like. Actually, no. Now that I've thought about it a little bit, it would make sense for a real stupid plot hole to just be in these movies because they don't really care about the plot. You're not there for the plot, like.
Because the other thing, thinking about it too, I was like, this guy had like so many opportunities to like just kill everyone off. Like, he was literally hiding overnight in Sarah Michelle Gellar's bedroom and just, like, decided to cut her hair off instead of, like, just slit her throat or whatever. I was like, what are you doing, mate? Like, why are you risking getting caught?
It's a night well spent, isn't it? Just hiding in the closet there. Jeez. Isn't that your normal weekend?
Yeah, well.
And instead, let's kill her, like, while there's, like, 50,000 people around and there's some conveniently placed tyres. Some real conveniently shaped tyres in an alley. It was like, what?
I always think this in horror movies, though. Like, at least with this one, there was a specific reason why he was targeting that specific group of people.
True.
But, like, I remember I was watching, and it's one of the real late Friday the 13th movies. It's called Jason Takes Manhattan, I think. And he's in New York, and he's chasing down this group that he has no connection to whatsoever. But he's just wandering down, like, the streets of New York with thousands and thousands of people. He's not killing any of them. Like, you're a guy who doesn't think. Why are you not just slaughtering everyone?
Yeah. Like, I have to, like, two honorable mentions of, like, favorite scenes. One is definitely when Ryan is running away from the car down the dock, and
Uh-huh.
literally just running running the direction the car goes.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
I'm like,
and there's
like he's on like, there's like shit on either side that you could easily duck behind or like run the opposite direction, but instead he runs down the road. That was just like ludicrous. And
Yes, I
then
was
the
thinking
car
same thing.
crashes into the house, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And he
Yeah, it
does-
was like there was so many other spots where he could have like hidden or entered like, you know, a proper like building or whatever. But he's just like, oh, let me stop here. This looks safe. Like,
and then he doesn't kill Ryan. He stands over the top of him, then
with
leaves,
the hook.
and then comes back and kills him at a later date. And I'm like, I don't understand.
I was gonna say, did we ever find out why he waited a year?
No, we don't, do we?
Because wouldn't it have been easier to just get them all together before they left? He's like, all right, I have to ingeniously engineer this plot to get everyone back together to scare them and then kill them in real wacky ways over a course of time. Could have done it last year.
Maybe because they left at the end of that year pretty soon after that, didn't they? After the accident. So maybe he wasn't like, he was pretty hurt, I reckon, maybe. So maybe that's the only reason he didn't do it straight away. He needed to recover.
Oh, and let's just talk about for a
Stupid,
second
stupid.
how am I remembering correctly? Does he like get his like hand chopped off or something when he gets like thrown into the water at the end off the boat?
Yes.
Yes, he does.
Yes, I'm like, how? So, yes, how does he recover from that? So he would have had to swim to shore or safety or whatever without a hand, like as if he wouldn't be bleeding out, and then he, you know, makes it back to like continue stalking this girl to get his second bout of revenge. Like
A whole year later.
Yes.
Not like 6 months or 3 months later, a year later. He just goes, now's the time. I'm going to
Yeah.
haunt her in this bathroom.
yes.
Also, another like outrageously like dumb scene that I have to talk about was she's decided to jump on this maniac's boat. She's then standing at the bow of the boat, and there's the choice to go down into like a well, which is one directional, or jump over the edge.
Yes.
Like the guy can't.
I wonder what she picks.
The shit, like, get off the boat. Oh, this is just like the whole time. I was just like, every decision you're making is wrong. No one's doing
Yep.
this. You're jumping off into the darkness. You're taking your chances.
But it makes for a more enjoyable time.
Yeah.
Because it's dumb. Like, if they didn't do that, she just jumped off, you'd be like, oh, good decision. And,
There's no movie now. You're using logic.
yep. Like, there are some movies, and this is what separates the good ones from the bad ones, and I always say this. The good horror movies are the ones where characters can make reasonable and rational decisions, and still the plot can continue. This isn't one of them. This is just one of those good ones where like, let's just make all our characters make the dumbest decisions and we'll just kill them all off. How does that sound?
Yeah. All right. So overall, did we all enjoy this, and would we recommend it?
Yes and yes from me.
Yeah, it's I would tell people like it's a dumb movie.
Yes.
But I still would recommend it.
Yep. I'm in the exact same boat. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, same. I'm happy for people to watch it. Not the highest, but yeah, somewhere in the middle.
A 3 from Adam.
A 3 from Adam. A solid 3. Yep.
A 3
absolutely.
from me too. Like, this
Yeah.
is one of the ones where Adam's rating system works.
Actually works.
This is a perfect 3 movie.
Yeah.
I think I went 2.5, so I'm the only the change up here.
I understand.
definitely
I understand that. Yeah, I understand that rating. All right, and now on to our next movie.
That would be me. So we watched the Blair Witch Project.
Sure did.
So in this film, there is 3 film students who vanish after they've travelled into Maryland. I
Yep.
didn't want to say the name wrong.
Burkittsville, Maryland. And I'll get
Burkittsville,
into why I
Maryland.
know that so well a bit later.
So they travel into the forest there to film a documentary. This documentary is on a local legend called the Blair Witch, and all that is left at the end of, or at the start or at the end of the movie, how you want to look at it, is their footage that they had. It's shot on handycams, and the technique's called found footage, which I had a bit of confusion about because it literally is found footage. And yeah, so they find the footage the people find the footage, and then that's how the movie is essentially shot. I'm not sure if Adam was going to talk about budget, but I'm
Yeah,
happy
yeah,
to
absolutely.
quickly
I can
talk
jump
about it, or
I can jump
want
into
to
it.
talk
Yeah,
about it,
so the movie was released in 1999. Its directors are Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Myrick, who also went on to do a number of other just like Blair Witch property projects, as well as a few other horror movies, but nothing really of huge note. It had a budget of only 60 USD, 60,000 USD, and had a box office of $248.6 million.
Amazing.
So
yeah, it absolutely killed it. Just to add to that, Adam, I did have a look because I was wondering with that 60K because how low that was. It does say that after like post-production costs they did have, so it said it's around sort of the between 200 and 750, but then I said about 200 to 500,000. So still not much.
Even still, that's
a lot of that. I can almost guarantee that a lot of that went into marketing because I know that
most
this
likely.
is one of the heaviest marketed films in the 90s.
And like, too right, like what a fantastic film.
Does everyone know how they marketed it? Just to get into
They
that
said
before.
like, didn't they try and market it as like a real, like real found footage?
Yes. Put up all wanted posters everywhere. They put up like not wanted posters, like lost posters. If you've seen this person, they put it in papers. They set up a website that had like extra clips to be like, oh, if you've seen these people. I think they set up maybe like fake walkthroughs of the forest to try and find the people as well.
Wow.
Yeah, they went all in on it. So a lot of the people walking into the movie because the internet wasn't a massive thing back then. So a lot of the people walking into it would have just had that whole may be real. And until you get to the end where it's got the directed and everything, it kind of plays it genuine and looks very genuine as well.
Okay, so I want to talk to you just about this film. What were your thoughts? Did you like, especially because like we sat down last year and played the Blair Witch game, which I know is totally in a different spectrum to this. Like, did you get lots of vibes from that? I certainly did.
Yeah, I definitely got the vibes when those stupid little bundles of sticks started popping up. I was like, yes, I remember this from the game. Same with just like the walking through the woods. I think that actually put me more on edge, like in the game, more so than the movie.
Yes.
And yeah, when they were at the house at the end, I was like, oh god, what is going to happen here?
Oh, 100%. As soon as they were in the house, I was like, I'm like the tension that you have built throughout this. I think that, for me, that was where the story sort of really shone. And like, I gave this like my highest rating of a 5 out of 5 because, I think that like what it's trying to achieve is pretty much perfect. Like, this is the best found footage film that I've ever watched. Just in terms of like narrative storytelling, because I could see myself with a handy, like, or with my mobile doing this exact thing. Like, this
so could I. Like, yep.
While you were watching this, Em, were you like, "Oh my god, this is Adam"? Because this is what I was doing. I was watching this, and I'm like, I just make hiking videos all the time. Me just walking and doing stupid things with my friends, and like I talk to the camera like this, and like do so like that made it even more terrifying. And then the fact that they just get. I think the horrifying part of it is more not so much like the supernatural element. For me, it's the getting lost and
100%.
Absolutely.
That is what made me really tense, especially seeing them all start to lose it. I was like, I would be so done. I would have felt like given up. I would have been like, nope, like we're gonna be lost forever. Just kill me now. Like I can't, don't want to stay here anymore. Don't want to be here. Like.
Yep. And I could definitely feel like, especially when they start fighting with one another, I was like, like if this happens with me and my friends, I'm the guy who they're going to be yelling at. I can feel it. I can feel it. They're going to be yelling at me so hard.
And you'd be the idiot that's still trying to like video the experience.
Oh yeah, 100%. I was like,
what are you doing?
Because I was that girl. 100%. I would have been like, I would have documented this because it's like, what happens if someone finds the phone? And you guys would be like, turn off the phone at him. And I would be like, no.
It'd be like, preserve your battery.
At least you wouldn't be like old mate that's like, oh, I'll just throw the map away.
Oh,
and then lie about it.
Because initially with that, I was like, oh my gosh, like the witch has somehow gotten into their bodies and taken the map or something. Like, oh, this is a supernatural thing. But then when he reveals it, he's like, oh, yep.
I did
in
it.
the river.
I was like, you're like the worst type of person there is.
Yes.
He wonders why they're getting angry at him too. Like, come
Alright,
on.
so
I feel like that would be a Nathan move. So shout out to Nathan if he listens to this.
100%. The whole time I was like, Nathan's this guy. Nathan's the guy who throws the map away and just yells, "This is dumb."
Yes. Well, I don't understand it, so it mustn't work.
Oh, yeah, you kill me. I think
Sorry, Nathan.
it's so true. I think the one thing that like the bit of disbelief I had, like, I guess like people do get lost when they own compasses, but like that always like, how could you head south for a whole day?
Oh no! I think
yeah.
that's definitely
That was the
part
witch.
of the witch.
Oh, okay.
I was more thinking with that. I was like, well, if you've done it for one day, aren't you going to realize the compass isn't working?
Correct.
Like, well, the compass has been affected. So yeah, so that was my thing.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
I will say, going back to how this movie is scary due to being lost in the woods, I'd always underrated this movie. I'd always been like, yeah, it's all good, but it's not really that scary. And I saw this when I was a teenager after Blair Witch Hysteria, and I was looking back on it as a revisionist. Like, yeah, okay, cool. They did the found footage thing first, all this sort of stuff. But being a teenager, I didn't realise, like, true, real scary things, because I'd never been camping. When you're a kid, you're like, I'm not going to get fucking lost. Watching this as an adult, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And this still feels fresh to this day. And I came up with a theory as to why. Because this was the first found footage movie. I'm not saying it was the first movie shot on a handy cam or anything like that, but this was the first time this sort of amateur style filmmaking had entered the mainstream. And because of that, in 99, it hit a really weird time where the movies that this influenced are all shot in like very HD, very sort of clean and everything. This hit right at the time where format was perfect, where they were filming on video and they were filming on 16mm, and both have a very distinct style, you know, when they're shooting on everything else. You know, when they're shooting on both, sorry. And because of that, this movie still feels very unique to this day. I know a few of us have watched quite a number of found footage movies up to this time, and they're always about getting everything they can in frame. Where this was genuinely like we were going out to the woods and filming, and they introduced my favorite trope, and I know I talk about it with Adam every time we watch a found footage movie, but how they always have to explain why they situations where you would not keep filming. And they started here with the genesis of the found footage. She explains a million times why she's keeping filming in ridiculous circumstances.
But it's actually believable, her explanations too. It's like, yeah, like, you know, if you're someone obsessed with, like, film, then, yeah.
It still gets to a point where you're like, 6 days down the track, you're literally going to kill the people you're camping with, and you're like, yeah, let's keep filming this.
Josh, I don't, like, maybe you don't know me well enough yet, but, like, Emily can totally see me being that guy in this situation.
Yeah.
Oh, no, absolutely. But I'll take it back to when we watched Wreck. Like, how many times did you have to explain, keep the camera up and film everything? It's
Wreck was stupid. Wreck was stupid how it handled that. But, yeah, I feel like this was pretty well... Like, it made a lot of sense also because they were doing a documentary, right, on a Blair Witch. So, like, anything, like, keep the cameras rolling and, like, what else are you going to do?
And I'll say this. Every single trope of found footage this introduced, it does better than all other found footage movies I've seen.
I think she also said that it was kind of like her safety net in a way, like recorded through the screen, so it's not like reality. So that was a good good way to explain it.
I was also thinking though, due to the formatting of the time, and they stopped using the 16mm, don't they? Oh wait, so that wouldn't work. So the random little conversations she's filming, because of the formatting they're using, you can run out of tape. It's not like you're recording on a phone these days where you can just delete what you had. So that's why I felt like that was the only thing that you have to deep dive it to even think in that fashion. Where she's like, I'm capturing everything. And I was like, all right, but you do have a limited space as to what you can capture.
I didn't think of that one.
And then I was like, oh yeah, you can record over the videos. But then I thought, but we wouldn't be seeing if she had have recorded over it.
Yeah.
What did everyone think about the end? Are we going to talk about the end or?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. I think we just like, all right, at this point here, we're going to talk about the ending of this. I know we didn't do it for the last movie, but yeah, all right. Go ahead, Em. Let's talk about the ending.
Yeah, like a little unclear about, I guess, what actually happened in the end. Like, because it was Mike. Was that the guy?
Mhm.
Yeah. So it was Mike like standing against the wall, like, and then so he'd been like attacked or something before that, it seemed, and then the girl had just like discovered him, and then she like got attacked as well, I think.
She ran downstairs and then fell over and dropped the camera. That's my
Yeah.
interpretation of it.
So there is an in-universe explanation for it, the ending, but it comes in the 2016 Blair Witch movie, which I watched today, and I actually watched the second Blair Witch movie last night, so I'll give a recap and rundown of those in a minute. But there is a reason in storyline, but it's just something they've sort of made up down the track, I reckon, to make it make sense. It's not supposed to make sense.
Okay.
I think it's just supposed to be one of those things that looks
Terrifying.
creepy. Yeah, exactly. I'd always talk shit about the ending because I was like, oh, it's just a guy standing up against a wall. It's not scary or anything. But that whole house scene at the end, I realized how effective it was on this rewatch.
With the paint with the hands all on the wall. Emily, it was as soon as they went into that house, this is where I got like the biggest, like obviously video game vibes. And as soon as I saw the person just standing up against the wall, I was freaked out beyond belief. Like I had like chills down my spine because I remember that being like the most horrifying part of that game, where you walk into a house and there's like just like someone standing in the corner and then they just disappear afterwards. Ugh. Gross.
Yeah.
So, does anyone have anything else to say about the Blair Witch Project before I get into the sequels that I watched?
No, go for it.
It was much better than I remembered. I think I don't know if I got it confused with another movie, but I vaguely remember. I mean, I'd seen it ages ago and only once, and I thought the camera work was like real shaky originally, but it wasn't actually that bad. I don't know if it's because we watched what was the movie we watched last week again? Climax. Maybe after watching Climax and seeing how disorientating the footage was in that, it got rid of it. But yeah, it didn't seem as shaky, and it was definitely a good plot, awesome plot actually, and awesome runtime too. Like you weren't bored at all. So, and yeah, everything, the character development, like I really enjoyed it.
So, on to Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, which came out in the year 2000. Cannot believe that this is a sequel to the Blair Witch Project. This feels like a sequel to literally any other 90s and 2000s horror movie except the Blair Witch Project. So it opens up with some sort of news footage of people getting interviewed around the town of Burkittsville. And then it's like, now we're going to go into some reenactments. And it's just like the shittest group of characters. There's a Wiccan, there's a goth, and it's just horribly acted. But I can only imagine what it was like for the director to make this movie, then come back and present it to be like, yeah, this is my sequel to the Blair Witch Project, and just having the producers go, what the fuck is this?
Was it found footage again?
No, that's what I'm saying. They did nothing that the original did. So it follows a group of people who, so in the movie, it plays off the original having been a movie. So we're in like the verse where the Blair Witch Project's a movie, and it has people coming to Burkittsville who are like, oh, we're doing Blair Witch tours. It was actually real, all this sort of stuff. Everyone's like, nah, it's just a movie. And then they all end up just going around killing each other. It is one of the strangest movies I've ever seen in terms of being a sequel. But I respect the balls on just going, yeah, this is a sequel to Blair Witch. It was made on $15 million budget, made $50 million just because it had the name attached.
Wow.
And it is terrible. Like, I know What You Did Last Summer is like the Citizen Kane of these type of movies compared to this. This would function better as a sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer than it would to the Blair Witch Project. But I actually enjoyed watching it more than I enjoyed watching the 2016 Blair Witch film.
Really?
And here's why. And I'll preface this by saying I actually think you, Adam, and maybe even Em, maybe even Chris, may enjoy this, but it just really pissed me off for a lot of reasons. It's one of those soft remakes, which is a sequel, but it's also the hitting a lot of beats that the original tried to hit. So it follows Rachel. Is it Rachel, the main character of the original? What's her name? Yeah, Rachel. So it follows Rachel's brother, right? And he's like, oh, I still feel like my sister's out there in the Burkittsville woods and all this sort of stuff. So my issue with it is the best part of the original is how real it feels and how little equipment they have and how little footage they have to take from. This thing, they're like, we've got 1 million cameras, we're taking a drone, we're going to film absolutely everything. They still get lost in the woods. They still have those little stick men show up everywhere. And the things that it takes from the original, it does way worse. And trying to show you everything is not a good idea. And it feels like it's inspired a lot more by the films that were inspired by the original Blair Witch Project instead of the Blair Witch Project. Like, it's not less is more storytelling like this is. It's, we're going to put everything in front of your face. We're going to explain all the mythology. And I really didn't care for it. And I think it went against the spirit of the original. And that's why I didn't like it. But there are some scares in there that I'm sure would scare a lot of people. So, and it gives a little bit of an explanation for the ending. And I'm assuming it's more like the game because there's an extended house scene in it as well.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, so you guys should probably check it out. You may enjoy it. You may give it a 3-star or maybe even above. But I just felt, especially watching the Blair Witch Project and realizing how good it was after I'd sort of discredited it for so many years. And then watching something that just wants to be like, oh, we can do this better. What this needed was technology and HD and everything. It just didn't feel right to me.
Okay, interesting. I don't know if I'll get around to watching it. Like, I'm just super over horror movies, but eventually, maybe. Maybe next year.
It does sound interesting, so I might watch it.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's a pretty good spot to stop with the Blair Witch Project. And now let's move on to the next one. So the next movie that we watched was A Nightmare on Elm Street, directed by Wes Craven and released on the 16th of November, 1984. It had a budget of $1.8 million and had a box office of $57 million worldwide. It stars Robert Englund, Heather Langenkamp, Johnny Depp, John Saxon, and Amanda Weiss. Take away with the plot.
So A Nightmare on Elm Street follows a group of teens living on, you guessed it, Elm Street in Springwood, Ohio. At the start of the film, we find out that two friends are having very similar dreams of a deformed man wearing a razor blade nailed glove. One of the girls, Tina, even has some scars from her encounter within the dream with the figure. Flash forward, and both girls are spending the night with their partners, and that's where everything goes to hell. Tina is murdered violently in her sleep. Her boyfriend Rod is blamed and is jailed, and it is up to the other two teens, Nancy and Glenn, to fight off this night demon named Freddy. Well, it should have been up to Nancy and Glenn, but Glenn is an absolutely useless fuck who honestly deserves to get killed more than any other character in film, so it is up to Nancy to save the day. She has to deal with not only Freddy Krueger, she has to deal with an alcoholic and illogical mother, as well as a sheriff father who doesn't believe her. Everything seems to be against Nancy as she gets into the fight of her life with the man of her nightmares.
That was a really good summation of the entire film. Good job.
Why, thank you.
What was everyone's thoughts?
I'll go last on this one.
Well, I'll go first then. I enjoyed this film. I think it was a little bit, I guess maybe a little bit more tame compared to the Blair Witch Project. I feel like this had no suspense to it again. I think this is like a really fun movie. And I feel like my interpretation of what A Nightmare on Elm Street and what it actually was were totally different things. I thought that A Nightmare on Elm Street was like a really serious horror with like a really spooky, like, man chasing him, but like, man, Freddy Krueger is not that. He is fun.
It is as camp as shit, and it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I loved his really dangly arms in that first scene, which never appear again. Was oddly surprised by the effects.
How good were
Especially
they?
Amanda Weiss's death when she is floating around the room and
Oh,
smearing
yeah.
across the roof, and I was like, "Wow!" For like a 1984 film, this looks so good. But then there's
Especially with
other
that
scenes.
budget.
Yeah, especially with that budget. But then there were other scenes which were just ridiculous, like the one with Glenn towards the end. So yeah, I had a great time. What about you, Emily?
Yeah, it was definitely fun. I feel like my memory of this one's a little bit hazy because I watched it after the AFL Grand Final. So that was obviously like a little bit late and after a few beverages. Um, but I remember having a good time throughout. I think I might have fallen asleep during parts, so that doesn't help for our discussion right now. But yeah, on the whole, like it was really cool to see like where this whole like Freddy Krueger villain like has come from, because obviously it's something like popped up in like pop culture a fair bit, and there's that classic Simpsons episode where it's
the
groundskeeper
best one.
Willie, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I did really enjoy seeing where it all came from. I did not recognize Johnny Depp at all. Once
Like-
I realized that, I was like, wow, okay, didn't see that. But yeah, there was some like fun kills. It was like, I don't know, I haven't actually rated this one either yet on Letterboxd. So I'd probably be putting it at like, yeah, probably about like a 3 for me, maybe a 3.5. I'll have to think about it, but yeah.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I think it was definitely a fun watch. What a great movie to have as your first one, because I think it is Johnny Depp's first main role, or even I don't know if it's movie, but definitely main role, which is pretty cool to have. And the sort of same thing. Like I suppose I didn't really know the start of like how the whole start of A Nightmare on Elm Street or the whole Wes Craven type thing began with Freddy Krueger. And yeah, the effects were pretty good in some of the scenes. A lot of them was you'd be laughing at it, but as Josh said earlier, it was meant to be funny at times. But there still was an element of like you were definitely scared for the characters. Like you could see that if they didn't wake up, they were certainly not going to wake up at all. And the one part I found a bit silly was the dad of Nancy, so the sheriff or police officer. And how he obviously doesn't believe her, but she's like, none of them run to the house when she's screaming and all that sort of stuff in there. They're just like, maybe something's happening. I don't know. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, we'll go get the dad and then come and get her.
That was what happened. Yeah, it was just ridiculous. Like, if they know people are being getting killed, let's maybe have a bit of urgency there. But yeah, overall good. Yeah, I gave it around the 3.5.
Yeah,
So-
I think that's where I struggled with the film. Like, especially, like obviously, like you always have to just suspend your disbelief in horror films. I just wish people would act more like realistic, and I feel like that's why I kind of probably liked the Blair Witch a bit more. But yeah, there's that scene where like the dad literally sees like a supernatural event, and so does the mum. Like we're talking, your son just got made into bolognese, and your. Was it your wife got made? Or no, maybe the wife's later when they go inside.
Nah, the
house.
wife's later.
But I was just like, come on, like, and that wife scene where she disappears is ludicrous and was just like so out of place in this film. I felt. Yeah, I don't know. I actually wanted more from this film, especially because like everyone talks about Freddy Krueger, and like it's this big. I don't know. I thought that it was going to be, it would have more to it. I thought that it was going to be more like a Shining-esque film.
God, no.
Yeah, so I was so like misplaced with my thoughts.
That is, yeah, you not having the horror experience
Yeah.
that's sort of the rest of us have. I love this. This is such a nostalgic look back for me. I remember watching this for the first time with my sister in her bedroom when I was like 12 or something. It's just, it's such a fun time. It's so iconic. So many of the scenes. The Johnny Depp kill is one of my favorite kills in all of film. It's just so outrageous, and I love scenes. It's just like we're gonna have shitloads of blood just spraying everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like the last scene of Evil Dead when he goes. I can still remember seeing it for the first time. Freddy's arms coming up through the bed, pulling him down, and then like just the blender spray of blood coming up. And what a fucking dick Led is, falling asleep on his girlfriend 3 times when all she asked was for him to stay awake.
And like he doesn't even attempt to try.
No, he doesn't. Like
he's like you'd be like, oh, like all right, I'll try and stay up, and then you fall asleep. Different story.
Give a fuck.
This guy just goes, nah, straight away.
Puts on a porno, puts on his headphones, goes to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably the worst part.
Yeah. But I feel like in terms of what I enjoy from an aesthetic point of view, this is just an 80s classic. It hits the 80s vibe so well. It's so... And I think this is a deliberate choice from Wes Craven that everything seems fake and it seems like an old school 80s TV show about this real idyllic neighborhood where everyone plays it super straight. Yet underneath it, like the mum has a drinking problem and like they're holding this secret of this time that they...
So like was that something? So the mother had actually like done this in the past? Because I was like, why is this like part of the story? And I'm sure like in the sequel they do that as well. And just quickly,
the best thing to look at for that is the Simpsons episode. Like they give you, it's the same sort of setup.
Okay.
That's where your knowledge of it would probably
come from. Yeah, absolutely.
So Adam, you can just watch The Simpsons, like pretty much every horror movie. You might as well just watch
watch the Halloween specials, and that's it.
Yeah, then you'll be caught up.
Kazkill in the chat says you just need your beauty sleep when you're Johnny Depp. Clearly,
exactly.
Yeah, like I would say that this is probably a must-watch. I only gave it a 3 stars. I don't think it's as good as.
But this is a perfect 3-star for you, I feel.
Oh, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I did not... If you had given it anything else, I would have been shocked.
Like, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm pretty happy with the 3 movies that we chose. Because, like, one of them was, like, scary. But it wasn't like, oh, my God, I want to, like, crawl up in a ball and cry. You guys were pretty tame for this spooky set of films.
Because I feel like Halloween isn't about outright scares. Halloween's also about a sense of fun. And that's why I think A Nightmare on Elm Street is... probably out of the 3 we watched, the best Halloween movie to watch.
Yes.
Because it has that silliness. You can watch it as a group, and most of your group's probably going to have seen it at some point.
Probably the most iconic as well, like looking at the horror genre.
And it takes a lot of it is, in a lot of ways, your formulaic slasher. It takes a lot of the Halloween beats, but at least it adds that sense of humor. Whereas you sort of Friday the 13th and others don't. They just rip off the Halloween formula.
What would you say A Nightmare on Elm Street is comparable to, like in terms of the vibe?
I actually thought about this the other day. It's not quite Shaun of the Dead because I think the scare when it gets scary. I'm not saying it's scary necessarily, but when it starts to get intense, like if you're a squeamish person, some of the bloody scenes are quite intense.
That early one was like real fun.
Along with their body like slamming across the roof.
It's insane. Like there are some genuinely scenes that would be considered scary, especially if you're just getting into horror movies. So you can't say that it's full sort of self-aware humor. But what about you, Em? Do you have a movie that you compare it to? Oh, well, I have a thing.
No, that's why I asked you because it feels familiar, but like I can't quite place like what it's reminding me of, if that makes sense.
Well, in terms of it, could also be that like Halloween 3 sort of sense of where you get the fun while you're watching it, but this is obviously done a whole lot better. And I guess it is. I mean, it was a precursor to Scream in a way. Scream is actually probably the closest it is.
I would have said Ghostbusters. Like, it kind of gives me Ghostbusters vibes.
Actually, some of the scenes in Ghostbusters are quite a bit scarier, especially if you're a youngin. Then
what about
people
It?
Might remember.
What about It?
Nah.
No?
Yeah, no. I see where you're coming from with It.
Because it has like that fun part about it that's a little bit funny.
And they both feed on fear. That's another thing about Freddy Krueger. He's actually powered by people being scared of him, and that's why at the end when he turns away from him and he goes for the slash and she's not scared of him, he has no power anymore.
Yeah. I think for me, I actually found found It scary.
Yeah.
If we're talking about the remake, so yeah.
It's actually more of a true horror. It does have, as you said, that sort of fun clown part, but then it's also got a very scary.
Yeah, I guess it has two different a lot more heavier tones.
I will say I have to get this in there. Speaking about the film, Nancy, one of my favorite final girls. Love her. She's awesome. She's
She
a
has a good
badass.
scream.
She has a great scream as well. And she's literally the only rational character in this whole movie. And that's why I place this under Child's Play in terms of my favorite sort of 80s slasher movies. I find Child's Play better, and I say this every time, because the characters always act reasonably with the information they're given. When she pulls that hat out of the dream in front of her mother, when her mother knows that they've executed this guy, and her mum's just like, you just need some sleep, honey. I'm like, come the fuck on.
She's a drunk, Josh. She's a drunk. You gotta
She
let
wasn't
her.
drunk then, though. Like, how did she pull a hat out of the dream? Either your daughter has been taking magic lessons on the side.
I like the guy who ran out on his partner's death. That was my favorite.
Because he's like, I'm definitely going to get blamed for this. And guess what? He did.
Yeah, absolutely. That was so friggin' funny. I was like...
Nah. And I love that this movie is... The kills and the violent scenes are awesome. And the scenes in between are really fun to get you through. Real campy. And they're self-aware in the sense that you can definitely see how the guy who made this went on to make something like... And because I've seen every Nightmare on Elm Street movie except one, which is called New Nightmare, which I'll speak about in a sec. But anyone listening, I would recommend A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. It's my favorite from the series. Just again, great sense of fun, great kills, pretty decent storyline. It's got some of the characters back from this one. New Nightmare actually is the last one in the original series, and it's a really self-aware meta as Heather Langenkamp as herself and Wes Craven as himself and all these actors who are in the movie as themselves. And it has like Freddy entering the real world and showing what like being part of horror movies can do to people and all this sort of stuff. And in terms of meta humor and things in horror films, it's seen as the actual precursor to Scream. So that could also be worth a watch. And I think I'll probably watch it this weekend.
Have you seen Dream Warriors?
I have. Dream Warriors is one, isn't it?
Oh, okay. I have no idea. Just someone in the chat has...
Yeah, Dream Warriors is my favorite one, if that's the third one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying this is one of the rare movie series or franchises that number 3 is the best?
I'm not saying number 3 is the best. This one be. This one may be objectively the best. I don't know. I have to go back and watch 3. But from a sheer enjoyment factor of being a fan of 80s horror, the kills I think are better in that one. The effects are better. The characters are fleshed out, and I like the setting better. It takes place in like a mental asylum.
Okay, because I can't think of many movies that the number 3 is the better one. Maybe Rocky is Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious, the third
Again, one. Rocky, I think, will be one of those ones where it's a personal taste thing.
Yeah.
I think you traditionalists are definitely going to say the first one's the best, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's definitely not Rambo 3. All right.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. All right, so that concludes this episode of Film School Podcast. What are we watching next week, guys?
What are we watching, Adam? I can't remember the name of it.
What was the name?
Does it have the word country in the title?
Nah, it's Heartbreak something.
Heartbreak.
Heartbreak Ridge.
Heartbreak
Ridge. Beautiful. So that is what we're watching next week, Heartbreak Ridge, and we're also going to have FNH Paul join us from an American in the UK joining us.
Oh.
So thanks so much for listening to this episode of Film School Podcast. This Wednesday, the 28th of October. You can follow us. If you could follow us on Instagram and Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube channel, that would be awesome. Thanks so much for listening, and we will catch you guys next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
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 Let's just talk over the outro.
Ghost.
Adam, system.
That's